Rounding. We can round off numbers when we only need to know an approximate figure, but we don't really need to know the actual amount. Let's look at this example. The distance from Kumasi to Accra is 255.20 kilometers. We can conveniently round this to 260 kilometers. That means that if somebody was to ask you, what is the distance of Kumasi from Accra? And if the person didn't actually want to know the very specific and actual amount, you could conveniently round it to 260 kilometers. In another example, the population of a school is 1,193 pupils. This could be conveniently rounded to 1,200 pupils, which means that if somebody was to ask what is the population of this school, then you may conveniently tell the person 1,200 if the person didn't actually want to know the actual amount. So we can round to any convenient place value. We can round to the nearest tens, to the nearest hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, and so on. But every situation requires a different level of accuracy. Look at this example. The distance from Kumasi to Accra is 255.20 kilometers. Now, if we round this to the nearest whole 10, then that becomes 260 kilometers. And if we round it to the nearest whole 100, then it becomes 300 kilometers. And if you round it to the nearest whole 1,000, then we get 0 kilometers. So you see, we get very different amounts. And so we have to see which one is the most appropriate for the level of accuracy that we need. Well, of course, when you look at it here, you see that the most appropriate would be the whole tens, which will give us 260 kilometers, because that is very close to the actual amount. Because if we had gone to the nearest 1,000, we would have gotten 0 kilometers, which is inappropriate, because in this case, definitely there are more than 0 kilometers between Kumasi and Accra. So when it comes to rounding, you must round according to an appropriate level of accuracy. So when you look at this, let's get into this exercise. Rounding. Exercise 1. State which place is the most appropriate to round these numbers to. Which place value is the most appropriate to round these to. Let's do the first one together. The distance of the Earth to the Sun is 149,597,870 kilometers. And if we wanted to round it, what level of accuracy would be most appropriate? I'm sure you got that. The millions. If we wanted to round this figure to an appropriate level of accuracy, then we would round it to the nearest millions. Well, have a look at the other 5 here. And what I want you to do is simply state the place value that it is most appropriate to round these particular figures to. Pause the video here, and we'll see you when you get back in just a few minutes. Well, I'm sure you had a good go at this. Let's have a look. Well, the number of guests at the party was 193 guests. And if you wanted to round it to an appropriate level of accuracy, you would round it to the nearest whole tens. The nearest whole tens. And even the hundreds would be acceptable. Tens would be the most appropriate. Hundreds would also be quite acceptable. Let's look at the next one. The number of spectators at the football match was 26,293. So what is the most appropriate level of accuracy to round this to? See? Yes, it should be rounded to the nearest thousands. Check your work, give yourself a mark. Well, the population of Ghana is 25,936,472. If you wanted to round that, the most appropriate level of accuracy would be the millions. Yes, to the nearest whole million. The distance from London to Birmingham is 202 kilometers. So the most appropriate level of accuracy here would be rounding it to the nearest whole 100. Good. And the last one, the pages in the book are 67. If you wanted to round that, the most appropriate level of accuracy would be rounding it to the nearest whole tens. Check your work out of 5, and if you've made mistakes, make sure you watch the video on rounding so that you can get a better understanding on how to do that. Let's move on. Well, we are now going to round these numbers to the place value shown in the brackets. And let's go over one as an example to make sure you understand what to do. The example says, the distance of the Earth to the Sun is 597,870 kilometers. And we want to round it to the nearest whole millions. So when we look at this number, we know that the millions are here. The 9 is in the millions columns. And just as a reminder, we look at the next place to the right to determine whether the 9 was there 9 or whether it will go up by 1. In this case, a 5 tells us that the 9 will go up, so it becomes 10. But you can't have 10 in the place, so you send the 1 over. So this becomes a 5, and this becomes a 0. And so 149,597,870 kilometers is approximately 150 million kilometers rounded to the nearest whole million. So what you're going to do now is, let's pause the video here and go over it. You're going to round to the place value as shown in the bracket. See you when you get back. So you're back now, and let's have a look at this. It says here, the number of guests at the party was 193. So if you rounded it to the nearest 100, then we know that these are the hundreds. We look at the next place value, that is going to make the 1 become a 2, and all the other numbers become zeros. So 200 guests rounded to the nearest whole 100. And we should put that approximate sign in. So let's just tidy this up. We're not writing equal because it doesn't equal that. We put our wavy equal sign, and we said it's approximately 200. The number of spectators at the football match was 26,293, which we know is approximately to the nearest 1,000, 26,000. Well, the population of Ghana is 25,936,472, which is approximately 26 million. I hope you're all getting that. The distance from London to Birmingham is 202 kilometers, which is approximately to the nearest 100, 200 kilometers. And the last one, the pages in the book were 67, which is approximately to the whole 10, 70. So mark your work out of 10. I hope you were able to get, mark it out of 5. I hope you were able to get 5 out of 5. And if not, then, as I said, make sure you go over rounding again so that you can get it right in future.